Hey there, welcome to episode 130 of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at 11:15 in the evening, now 11:15 p.m. on Thursday, August 21, 2025. Normally we publish on Fridays, so we're getting a little jump on the weekend, recording on Thursday night, late Thursday night, but that's fine. Today's title and topic, the Vegas Bourgeoisie. Ooh, getting fancy. Technical terms. If you're not familiar with the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program, or perhaps we'll start with, if you're not familiar with Cafe Genius was a project I started in January of 2022. It was designed, we started off with the pitch workout room. It was basically, how can we enable entrepreneurialism, entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem stuff, including research, discussion, examination, ideation, what can we do from the bottom up? We are in the ecosystem. Some of us are entrepreneurial or want to be. We're innovators. We should be taking an active role. So pitch workout room, pitch mingle, genius roundtable. Eventually we'll bring back the genius lunch. So some of those come from the name. Genius Roundtable comes from Cafe Genius. But Cafe Genius, the genius in that, comes from the original Genius Lunch, which was a downtown project gathering occasionally of various people doing various things. So we'll try to bring that back and some other stuff. There's just a ton of things to do. Entrepreneurial innovation ecosystems they're not easy, they're not simple, and they should not be left to chance or oversight by people who are not impacted directly or involved. I digress. So Cafe Genius Impresarios, the cafe with two F's in Cafe Genius Impresarios, is inspired by a Cafe Centro. It was a small, cute little coffee shop in South Park in San Francisco, located very, very near then AT&T ballpark. In fact, I think it was around for the Pac-Bell ballpark, the AT&T ballpark when I was there, and then now it's the Oracle ballpark. Cafe Centro, and I've been there several times. It was a very nice place. It was where startups start in San Francisco. It's where Twitter allegedly got a start, with Jack sitting there with his laptop, probably growing his beard out very proactively. So cafe with two F's, Cafe Centro in San Francisco. Genius from the genius lunches of the downtown project. Impresarios, those are people doing cool things. Every once in a while, we used to have an interview style with a guest for this program. We may return to that. So impresarios. However, it is also about impresarios. So the things that enable the people doing cool things to do those cool things. And so that has been the topic week after week for some large fraction of the 130 episodes that have brought us here. That is Cafe Genius Impresarios, the audio program. Hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a brief summary that I'll read to you. I think it's 2 sentences. Yeah. A few links for today's program, 3 shameless self-promotion, 3 relevant for this episode. And then we'll get into it and get out of it so we can head off to the weekend. You are free, of course, to listen to this episode whenever you like. And by the way, you can hear it in more places now. I'll get to that in a moment. But do be aware, you have more choices. Choice is usually a good thing. So let's get started so we can get finished. The summary of today's episode. No, this is not an episode about Marxism. It is some pondering of the bifurcation of Greater Vegas into those who make claims about what goes on and those who feel it. Maybe some familiarity with Marx would come in handy, and we'll just leave that there. The links for today's episode, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo. You do not have to spend any money at that website, but I do use that as like an always-on profile page. It has all my links to various audio programs, including this one, various projects. There are some affiliate links. If you click on them, it costs you no extra money, but I would make a little chump change for myself. Links to all of my favorite, not all, but some of my favorite coffee beans available on Amazon, and a few other products and services. I use all of them. So they're actual first-person endorsements by me. If you want to take advantage of those, great. It would help produce the shows, and all of my shows are produced by me and coffee. So all proceeds, no matter how they arrive through either the Buy Me a Coffee platform or the Ko-fi platform coming up next, all that goes towards coffee or coffee accessories. So that might be good to know. So as I mentioned, in more places, you can hear this program, Cafe Genius, not only on Apple Podcasts and Apple Music and Podcasts and Spotify and maybe iHeartRadio, and I'm going to try to get some more places, so I'm being more proactive about getting the reach. But we are also available on YouTube. So youtube.com/@Cafe Genius. Remember, 2 F's, CAFFEGENIUS. Cafe Genius. You will, for the moment, you will hear our podcast. So all the videos posted so far are just one frame, our cover art, and then the audio of the program. Do enjoy them at YouTube or Apple Podcasts or wherever you want to listen. You can also, of course, get the show via just a plain old RSS feed and use whatever tools you would like. So one of the links available on buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo for all of my audio programs so far is a link to the Spotify for Creators profile page. That's where you'll find the Apple, the Amazon, the iHeartRadio, the RSS feed, the Spotify link, of course. So all that is there. The YouTube link is new, and breaking news, the web server has been running all week for all of my website properties that are affiliated with my audio program. So cafegenius.org, pardon me, ffstalk.com, quaglingsand.com. Of course, there's always been innovateforvegas.org with a link to the audio programming. And there's even some stuff. There's the same Spotify for Creators, the same YouTube sort of, and there will be website presence for Buy Me an Update, which is available on Mondays, and Ko-fi Solo, which comes out whenever. So that next link, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo/posts, is where you will find the first posting of Buy Me an Update, which is published on Monday mornings. A quick rundown on the previous week's audio program topics and any news and announcements upcoming, so 5 minutes or less. So you can find that there first, but it is also available in all the other places, and it is linked from the buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo profile page, as well the Ko-fi Solo program, which has no specific release schedule or topic constraints or anything. It just could be whenever, wherever, whatever. Ko-fi.com, Ko-fi.com. The hyphen is next to the 0 on your keyboard. Ko-fi.com/DanHugo/posts to find those episodes there first, and then they will appear in the other places as well. The origin of Buy Me an Update, obviously, Buy Me a Coffee. The origin of Ko-fi Solo, obviously, Ko-fi.com. Neither is a place where you must spend money, but you can if you want. And again, any proceeds that come through those go towards coffee or coffee accessories, which is what makes my efforts go. The Bourgeoisie. The Bourgeoisie. There's a Wikipedia link for that. The Bourgeoisie, those are the people that want to get more capital. They probably already have the capital. They are the people that are controlling things. They are, if you want to remember this easily, the bourgeois is the castle or the fort. It's the people up on high. Fun fact, if you live in a city with burg in the name, or if you live in New York in a borough, these words all come from this term, and it's essentially a fort or a protected area or where your royalty would be, etc. So the bourgeoisie, those are the people that kind of run the show and are looking to attract more power and money, fame, and fortune, right? Next up, the proletariat. That's the rest of us. Those are the people that are doing the work. Vegas certainly has a lot of proletariat on the Strip, people working in the service industry, hospitality, even people that are entrepreneurial, the people that aren't quite famous. We don't have websites chasing us down for interviews and whatnot, and we haven't changed the world yet. And some people that live here have done those things, so we don't get invited to their meetings all the time. But anyway, the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. Again, this is not an episode about Marxist ideals or anything. I'm going to say that again. But it's an interesting bifurcation to examine. And I would argue there's more striation than that, but maybe that's another episode or an actual discussion. Finally, I like to refer to this sometimes. We're not going to go into detail about this, but if you do want to look at any of the actual data about how Vegas is doing right now, because that will come up a little bit later, the published LVCVA, that's the Convention and Visitors Authority, they published the research data, www.lvcva.com/research, RESEARCH, research. So if you want to find out what the visitor rates, the occupancy rates, all manner of things, they publish that all there. And there have been reports coming out now about month over month, this month, last year, so year over year, comparison data and whatnot. And the indications are, total, depending on which number you look at, numbers are down a bit. Some people are declaring the end of the world. We'll see. Anyway, actually, to be honest, the proletariat is declaring the end of the world. The bourgeoisie are trying to play it down. That's one way you can see the split. So those are the links. And again, let's get started so we can get finished on this Thursday night. It's now, my clock says, coming up on 11:30. Keeping it simple. Like I said, this is not advocacy for Marxist ideals. I don't think Marxism actually works, not as he's described it, so we don't have to go there. And it's not a discussion of the theories of Karl Marx. And again, I don't think they actually work. My opinion. I know some people are Marxists. They say it out loud. They're professors of Marxism and their economic pursuits and whatnot. Other than the use of the terms and the recognition that there are in Greater Vegas those who are driving and those who are going along for the ride, or maybe being taken for a ride, I'm not sure. This has come up a few times over the last 130 episodes or so, that the decisions made by, the bourgeoisie at all levels impacting Greater Vegas, and that's why I think there's more striations than just them and us. And I do consider myself to be in the proletariat. These are necessarily made in the best interest of we, the proletariat, maybe. They are not necessarily made in the best interest, just in case I missed that word. They are not made in the best interest of the proletariat, nor even in the best interest of good sense every time. If you've found yourself asking, why would they do that about, say, the ongoing pursuit of incentives for Hollywood 2.0, the attempts to bring more tech companies into a region that does not possess the innovation culture nor the economic foundations to support such enterprises, or perhaps something as simple as exacting material damage to small business in favor of the spectacle of a road race that pays off for some, but not others. Why indeed? The news of the day, of course, is the decline in tourism by a few measures: room occupancy, inbound visitors, some revenue measures, certainly anecdotal declines in tipping, and there are a few others. Some things are not as bad as others. Some things actually look not so bad at all. Gaming revenues downtown, probably by locals getting out and playing some games, probably good for some. Whether it is significant according to those in Vegasburg, see what I did there, whether it is even real, and whether it spells the end, or if it is a cyclic behavior amplified perhaps, maybe, by geopolitical and domestic economic factors. Maybe. So the numbers. I touched on this in a previous episode, so I am repeating myself here. I know that. But I believe it is far too early to, as Vegas itself might respond, the reports of my death are greatly exaggerated. That's a quote attributed to Mark Twain on a report that he was no longer around. It was a while ago. He was still around, as is Vegas, so the doomsayers and the sensationalist headline writers are maybe a bit premature. This is not to say that they are wrong, but certainly premature. They might be right eventually. Who knows? We'll find out. By the way, Twain's response when the New York Journal tracked him down in London to check on his good health and this reporting of otherwise was closer to what he originally said was, the report of my death was an exaggeration, but the only thing better than a good quote is a better quote. As I did state explicitly when I talked about this in a recent episode, my view is that any assessment of 2025 really needs to take place later in 2025, not in the hotter than usual, apparently, with heat warnings active right now. Quite warm, Vegas this summer. So we need to look at Vegas, the summer performance a little bit later after all the dust has settled. So later in 2025, I suggested like November or better into 2026, not only because establishing a trend based on a quarter can be tricky in general, but also because to say that 2025 has been somewhat chaotic on many fronts would be the understatement of all understatements. The more interesting conversation, in my opinion, is about longer term trends, not year over year monthly stats, but some of these over the last, say, 10 years, accounting for the pandemic impact and how pricing, fees, visitor experience, and the more recent increase in focus on economic diversification may be impacting, well, everybody, the proletariat, that's us. What is going on? And again, that's why I refer to the research part of the lvcva.com website. You can go and see what the actual numbers are, city of origin, various pieces of data about the demographics of visitors to Vegas, when, how often, et cetera, room occupancy. So yeah, there you go. It's always nice to have data. So the highlights, okay, so economic diversity, a topic of discussion, certainly since time immemorial, really, when you get right down to it. But say 2018 or so, definitely an uptick in attention. I know when I was poking around Vegas on first relocating to the area in 2013, I moved here from Silicon Valley in July of 2013. Technically August 1st, but really mid-July 2013. There was some rumbling about expanding focus on innovation and technological development in general, attempts to attract innovators, make use of the research portfolio sitting under years of dust at UNLV and so on. And of course, this was when the downtown project was cooking. So there was a look at, what would it take to bring innovation here and so on and so on. So still early days, but it was certainly a topic. Recently, I came across a rundown of the various incentive awards given by the Nevada GOED, the Governor's Office of Economic Development, to attract and enable companies here or moving here. There was and I'm not going to go into it today, but I do want to dive into that a little bit just to see. I'll interrupt myself briefly and say, you know what happens? They make these announcements and then no one does a follow-up. Hey, look, we gave incentives to 10 different companies. And then a year later, are any of those 10 companies still around? Are they here? Did they move out of town? Nobody ever mentions that part. So we'll talk about that another time. Trust me, I'm not kidding. There was the Zero Labs Innovation Launchpad. Cohort 5 took place at the beginning of July. I did apply to be a part of it I think I applied in May, early May, I think. They got back to me at like the last minute and said, maybe next time, reapply. To be honest, I was not impressed with the meeting I had with them, nor with the fact that who knows who is doing what with this cohort and what are the benefits, what are the upsides. Everything's anecdotal. They don't promote, they under-promote. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox. But I'm still curious about what they're doing and how well they're doing it. Open question, aside from anecdotal appreciation that some of the people that participate in the cohorts have expressed, has anything come of the previous 4 cohorts? Are any of them making it happen? I don't know. Was it helpful to take part in this 3-day event? No idea. What about the stuff Startup NV does? Is stuff happening? Are the award checks that they hand out, do those lead to successes? Are startups staying here? Are they leaving? It's really hard to figure out after announcements like that. It seems like everything gets quiet. I understand stealth startups, but come on, let's hear. There's got to be some good news. Generator, a generator that's spelled with an 8. Jenner, the number 8, Tour, if I'm remembering correctly, is doing something. I remember there was a big announcement when they first came to town a couple of years ago. They have another cohort, I think, maybe. I've connected with 2 important people, like general manager types at Generator, and then they never respond to anything because they're in the bourgeoisie and I'm in the proletariat, I guess. So maybe they're doing something, who knows? And then there are other incubator and accelerator possibilities, I think, maybe, but we just never really hear about them. This is our fabulous oasis for gaming and the fun economy, not startups. Although, no, this is a great place for startups, we promise. Anyway, back off the soapbox. With so much going on, our global innovation hub, that rivals the San Francisco Bay Area. Those are actual words that somebody actually typed onto the MWC, the Mobile World Congress Las Vegas website. It's been a while, and those words were no longer there last time I looked, but somebody is convinced that we rival the Bay Area. We, as the next Silicon Valley, make sure you put that big air quotes around that, there is an awful lot of silence when it comes to pointing to success stories that are not about Peter Tomasic. He seems to be the one and only. I've actually mentioned this already in a previous episode. It would be like, hey, Silicon Valley is going to be the next Silicon Valley. We got Steve Jobs. Look at this. He did Apple and he did Pixar and he did Next, and now he's back at Apple. Silicon Valley, that's us. Yeah. Okay. And, Peter, I've known Peter for quite some time. Great. One person does not the next Silicon Valley make. And by the way, I will repeat for those who haven't heard me say this already, Las Vegas is not going to be the next Silicon Valley. It should be a better Las Vegas. How about that? Throwing the gauntlet down. What we do hear about is a little bit of news about a new factory. I just read yesterday there's a robots making sneakers. Most recently, I think it's in Henderson somewhere, or other small win here and there, 300 jobs created, 100 jobs created. Those are never really clear. And again, we never really hear that actually happened, or, has it been successful? Is it growing? Are they still in business? It's really hard to connect those dots. You gotta look beyond the headlines, and that's hard to do when you're being told so much other fun stuff about the fun economy. And of course, the big stuff like the Oakland A's and their $2 billion stadium with unclear specific plans, a possible NBA expansion team, maybe. That keeps coming up now and then. Residence announcements for performers on the Strip, the Wizard of Oz at the Sphere. That's probably going to be fun. A lot of shiny announcements there without so much coverage of this decline, which is making more news in general, so that there does need to be some sort of a response, which there has been more recently, now labeled a soft summer. Maybe it depends on how much of your livelihood depends on it not being a soft summer, and how much the fact that it might be a discounted, how much the fact that it might be is discounted by you. In fact, that it's, the bourgeoisie. So if you aren't overly impacted by a soft summer, it's a soft summer, we have to deal with it. Maybe you're going to be laying some people off. Maybe they're not making enough money to pay their bills because we have a tip economy. I will say it again. I've said this many times. I'm not a fan of the tip economy. I think you should pay people a proper wage. I would favor co-op / profit sharing / commission sales models over tipping. Anyway, I digress yet again. So if you're a fan of top down, which I'm not, I'm not a fan of top down sometimes. Sometimes you need a management hierarchy of some sort, but it is always the way people think. And I don't believe that is always the best way for people to think. If you recall my mentions of the Genius Roundtable in a few episodes, I think one of them was called the Genius Roundtable. Sorry, I had to get a little water there. I think one of them was called the Genius Roundtable, but I've referred to it several times. The idea there was to gather people on the ground, people pursuing actual entrepreneurial endeavors, taking part in actual innovation to explore the local entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, to see what works, what does not, and where we can try to steer to make those things work, whatever things were not, or whatever's missing. Not to mention definition of what those terms even mean. What does it mean when an ecosystem is working? And what does it mean when it isn't? Who better than those experiencing it in real time to consult on its function, right? Like, how are we doing? If we talk to people that are doing research, Office of Economic Development, sure, you can do your research every couple of years. You can survey a couple 100 people. Great. We're talking about real time. How are things today? Have an ongoing conversation and really think about what the next steps are to take action from the ground, right? Not sitting in an office at the Bourgeoisie headquarters. You'll get tired of hearing that. However, the tendency in the world is to cede decision-making to elected officials and special interests with influence, and I will suggest that this has been a growing truth in the Greater Vegas area locally, the locality of Greater Vegas. It's probably always true, but more true in recent years with the implication that economic diversity is pursuing innovation. In other words, we want to be the next Silicon Valley. We want to have more tech startups here. That's been written out in plain English. We want to have more startups, more startup funding, more software engineers, more exits. Those words were written out with regard to our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem in a job description, actually. But is listening to those with influence, not necessarily those who are innovating. So that's the thing. We are taking direction from on high rather than the people busily making things happen. Not that people on high are not making things happen, but they're doing it way up there. The rest of us are down here making it really happen. We can definitely see this with the halo effect, as it is so easily applied to the celebrity and moneyed classes, and better if you're in both, here in Vegas, and how easily gatherings of these people and those with title and authority form to mingle, pass around ideas, and make things happen. But from on high, so they're really just pushing pieces around on a board, perhaps, maybe, I don't know, I could be wrong. Is make things happen trademark yet? It could be. I'll have to contact Bo Bernard. The halo effect is real, and it is easy to see, though not always identified, when someone who has made substantial profits more recently in, say, Silicon Valley, the real one, claims to know and understand how to make that happen here in Greater Vegas. Oh, get that person a halo. We got to listen to what they have to say. They are important. They stood on the shoulders of giants, though, and may not have the slightest idea what is under the feet of those giants. Like, how did those giants get up here? How am I able to see so far because of them? But how are they able to see so far? No idea. I suspect the bourgeoisie of Greater Vegas is far more interested in the prospects of the techno-fascist, big difference. Allegedly. I'm only saying what I've read. I don't really know Mark that well, but Mark Andreessen, I did work at Netscape when Mark was there. The Mark Andreessen of today being in Vegas, which was not to be so far, but he did announce having a residence, and then he changed his mind. Oh, you should have seen the excitement at the prospect. While the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed visionary known as Mark Andreessen at NCSA at Urbana-Champaign back when the Mosaic web browser was being developed, and he was one of those early founders of the project, would almost certainly have been ignored, believe it or not. Maybe they in the bourgeoisie of the time, or even, well, especially today, if the events of the mid-90s, early 90s, mid-90s, were moved to the present day, would Mark Andreessen get any attention? Maybe they would have taken a meeting with Eric Bina or Lou Montulli instead. Those people did actual work. Mark was dinged for being not a great coder, but anyway, he was good at telling a story and motivating people. I guess that's what counts. So who can say, but celebrity matters almost as much as financial success, so we can brag about it. Oh, Mark Andreessen and Andreessen Horowitz, they're gonna be in Vegas. Sort of. I gotta find out how those the Cybertrucks that Ben Horowitz and his wife donated through their foundation to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. I think it was 11 Cybertrucks. Probably doubled the sales in Nevada. So to be clear, now I am not suggesting there is a conspiracy in action. This is more simply many people who are in a warm introduction network, so everybody knows each other. Oh, hey, Bob, here's my friend Ann, etc. They are all in the club behind the velvet rope, right? So warm introductions tend to isolate people. In order to get an introduction, you have to either know someone already or be in the club, like in the lobby of the club. So it's difficult to just show up and start meeting people, right? You kind of got to be invited in. They're probably pursuing fiduciary responsibility as part of the role of elected officials. So they got to be responsible to the electorate and to the positive running of government, and so on, in pursuit of plain old profitability, advancement of efforts to diversify the state and local economies, take care of the people that are in their charge as an elected official or as a staff, et cetera, et cetera. So all that's fine. The problem, as I see it, and perhaps you might agree to some extent, is that these are decisions that these people are making. They're making them in the best interest of those warm introductions, more typically. The investors, maybe some of the donor class. Are they really paying attention to the population at large? I'm going to suggest it's difficult if there's no connection with them. How many people go to a city of council meeting, city of council? How many people go to a city council meeting of the city of Las Vegas or the city of North Las Vegas or the city of Henderson, a Clark County Commission meeting? I'll tell you, people started going after the first Formula One race, after the impact was felt by small business. This is a worst case scenario, perhaps. Sometimes things turn out okay. Sometimes, and this is an entire episode to explore those. So not diving into that too much. So sometimes things turn out okay. That's good. However, my concern is rooted in the amount of time that has been passing. Remember, I was talking about this in 2000, let's call it 15, so 10 years ago. So we'll say a decade or so, but a decade. And people were talking about it before I got here, I think. Maybe my arrival was impactful, who knows. And the wasted effort, poor communication, and generally questionable decisions we sometimes learn about, and how many have we not learned about? Whatever happened with the Badlands settlement? Wasn't that like $350 million taken from the city of Las Vegas coffers so they have less money to spend? Yeah, what led to that? Oh, I gotta flip through some of our independent media. The Nevada Independent and the Nevada Current. Let's start there. How about the stuff we haven't learned about? Yeah, so we should be able to learn about those more easily. I point to the spectrum of impact the Formula One race, and that includes preparations, the race itself, and the aftermath, had on local small business and local big business, not to mention the tourist experience and impact on locals with regard to commuting and other day-to-day factors. These material decisions and implementations can have far-reaching consequences, and that too is another episode. But I have talked about Formula One a bit from the perspective of the Clark County Commission and the LVCVA and the Formula One business entity spent a lot of time planning this thing to make sure that those in the bourgeoisie did fine, and some of the smaller business owners really did not. And I believe there were, I don't think it was a class action. I think there were 3 different lawsuits. 2 of them have been settled. One, I think, is still kind of half settled or has been moved around. And I believe that was from the first Formula One race. I think there are some other lawsuits from the second. Third one's coming up in November. Let's see how that goes. If you look at the Henny Penny, or you could go with Chicken Little, same thing. The sky is falling scenario now making the news all over, with YouTubers arguing among themselves and with their live stream audiences. We can obviously point to the national economy, impact on the economy by tariffs, job growth questions, and general unemployment, caution when it comes to discretionary spending on the part of the general public, and the big question, international tourism. I believe 20%, I don't know if that was just, I think Canada, visitors from Canada make up 20% of the international tourist visitation number. And I want to say international tourism is something like 12%. Annually. Those are down. I'm picking those from memory, so I could be wrong. But these are external factors. However, we all know at this point that prices for rooms, entertainment, food and drink, amenities, and the fees in general have been out of control, pushing people away. And this has been a problem for more than 3 months, more than 3 years. So what to do? Well, before I rattle through my 3 points and we call this episode a day, put it in the books. The Genius Roundtable covers this sorts of things. That was the entire purpose of having our first cohort meet. And one of these days, I will find people who want to take part in the second cohort, which will require more participation, more proactive interest, more diverse backgrounds. But I need to find people who are actually interested and interesting. And that has been harder than it was the first time. But I will argue that my first choices, the first time I put this cohort together, I could have done a better job at that. So I blame myself. You can too. So what can we do? What can we do moving forward? Especially for you and me and those of us in the proletariat, the people on the ground doing work, trying to do their entrepreneurial innovation endeavors, or just trying to make ends meet. People in positions of authority and notoriety, the people with the halos, deserved or otherwise, need to do a better job of communicating. And that means both ways of communication. That means talking and listening and talking. Responding to email. I know that's something people in Vegas absolutely don't like to do. They abhor it. Selection bias is real in this case, which can lead to groupthink, which can lead to surprises when the thing that seems so successful actually sort of screw people over. And again, Formula One race, but there will be more. There will be more things like that. baseball stadium, various trade shows, different events, stuff that just doesn't work out. And yeah, who ends up suffering? Transparency when it comes to plans and intent, communication when it comes to concerns from those who may and often are impacted in negative ways, and general awareness through traditional and alternative news media outlets might go a long way at bridging some gaps. Our local media does a really just awful job in two ways. One, a lot of stuff just doesn't get reported or doesn't get reported well. It's hard to find. You have to actually know to look for it. And then they don't really follow. I always say, one piece of news might get a 2-minute mention on a little video clip somewhere, or it might get, a lifestyle reporting, or you might get a couple of column inches on the website of a news agency, or you might get to all the local media if it's a big story, and that's it. But if you kill somebody, you'll get reported on every day for a while, and you'll get all kinds of follow-up coverage and when the sentencing is and all that. So if you do bad stuff here, you'll make the papers. Or if you're tearing down a building, you'll definitely make the news. If, capital IF, if the Greater Vegas area is intent on becoming a global innovation hub, guess what? Innovation is not something only the business and government friends already in that club can be involved with. In fact, this is gonna blow your mind. The really new ideas are almost certainly coming from others, maybe those new to the area or pursuing an entrepreneurial innovation bent that would do at least incrementally better without the need to wait for that halo. Oh, I can't get to the club, then I don't have access. Nobody will respond to my emails. I can't get introductions here in Vegas because all people care about is who else you know. And even those people don't respond. Face it, our ecosystem is not ready for entrepreneurial innovation at scale. We just aren't. It needs work, and how you work on it is you have people participate and people being responsive. And part of it is letting more people stretch within it. Accepting the notion that good ideas are out there somewhere, not in your meeting to talk about the next money-making debacle. So in other words, you gotta open the doors, and you gotta shake more hands. You gotta be more friendly and outgoing. You gotta communicate with people, respond to emails. Don't only show up to the checkbox meetups. Don't prevent people from, you have to be this wealthy to come into this meeting. Oh, and by the way, you've heard me say this before, innovation does not become a magical ability when you turn 18. We gotta stop the whole 21 plus, 18 plus mentality. So yeah, people that are, hey, let's meet and talk about the Formula One race. And there's at least 2 events coming up in the next couple of months ahead of November. I think it's 100 days from sometime this week. It was 100 days away. Ooh, very exciting. Yeah, the people going to that meeting, maybe the people with the good ideas don't want to waste their time going to that meeting. Right? Finally, I know you've been waiting for this, the final point, the somebody else will do it problem is not going to cut it, and it's rampant in Vegas. I know the 1-9-90 principle I've talked about many times. It still applies. We are going to need to get some of those 9s, and those are the people who support or enable the doers, to either promote themselves or get promoted to 1s. The 1s are the people that do things. They are the leadership. They are the people that say, if nobody else is going to do it, I'm going to do it. I didn't know I couldn't do that. Those are the 1s. And you can say their percentages, the 1-9-90, right? So 90% of people are typically spectators. People can switch roles. They often do, depending on what the specific case is. But here in Vegas, we got a lot of 90s. Culturally, there needs to be some acceptance of the notion that new and good ideas, useful and valid observations, and important critiques will come from people you have not met, from those who are not yet wealthy nor famous. Maybe you will be lucky to have met them before all of that unfolds. So yeah, meet more people. More people with more ideas and more desire to be a part of something interesting is what makes a global innovation hub. Otherwise, it's just a headline that you posted on LinkedIn and got a lot of likes, and so you think it's true. I got bad news for you. But we'll talk about that in a future episode. So thanks for listening, as always, to my rambling, my audio essays here on the Cafe Genius Impresario's audio program. I'll remind you, I know this is weird to announce it in the audio program, but you can listen in via YouTube, of course, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcast Music, Spotify, plain old RSS feeds. There will be more. And do look for the cafegenius.org. That's 2 F's, CAFEGENIUS.org website, which is at this point now a matter of me designing some creative one-pager to at least get started. I really should have had quaggling stand up on Wednesday. Proletariat, never a dull moment. Anyway, those will be coming, and watch the buymeacoffee.com/10Hugo profile page for links to all of this and more. So many ways to find me. You should add one, at least one, to your list. Talk to you soon, I hope. Take care.